Hi everyone, and welcome to Studio Jake. I, of course, am your host, Jacob Airy. Be sure to like this video, share it out to the world, the interwebs, and also ring that little bell so you get notifications when I do videos, because YouTube is doing this real weird curation thing where they're curating your subscription feed instead of showing it to you in chronological order. When you ring that bell, you get those notifications. Now, I'm going to first of all apologize if you hear any sound. Um, this is the only time I actually have to record this video for the weekend, but I apologize if you hear the lawn care people at my apartment complex. Normally they do this way earlier, but for some reason I guess they forgot to do a few things, and so if you hear like a splash or a lawnmower or a water hose, you can probably hear the water hose going right now. I just want to apologize in advance for that. Also, I have a second apology in this intro. Normally, I take a holiday hiatus for Studio Jake, so I go from I take Thanksgiving to New Year's off, and I realized something. I forgot to tell you I was going on hiatus, so I'm going to do 2 more videos for the end of this year, and I'm going to do 2 more videos for the end of this year, just to bring you up to speed on a couple of things and let you know about a couple of things. Today I'm going to talk about a very important topic, The Mandalorian. So sit back, relax, and welcome to Studio Jake. Alright, and welcome back. So, I want to talk a little bit about The Mandalorian, and again, I just want to remind you that I'm going to do 2 more episodes before I go on permanent Christmas break, no longer Thanksgiving break, obviously, but again, I apologize, and if I sound a little stuffy, I want to apologize for that too. Now, I want to talk about The Mandalorian. So it's a new show on Disney Plus. It's based in the Star Wars universe. For those of you unfamiliar with Mandalore, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Fans, if I'm mispronouncing the planet where Boba Fett and Jango Fett are from, please let me know, but I don't think I am. I think it is Mandalore. So for those of you unfamiliar with Mandalore, they are a planet of humans in the Star Wars universe who are bounty hunters, and they have different tribes and sects in their society, but they all are considered Mandalorian, and when they contract themselves out to do bounty hunting, they pay like a basically like a percentage to the cause of Mandalore. This is how it works. They're really good at bounty hunting. They've always been bounty hunting, and of course, in the movies, in the prequel series, you have Jango Fett, who developed the clones for the clone army, and then of course in the original trilogy, you have Boba Fett, who's seen in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. He's the one who captured or helped the Empire capture Han Solo. So really great characters right there, very interesting. Now, in the Clone Wars TV show, Mandalore takes a neutral stance during the Clone Wars, and they end up being conquered, actually, by Darth Maul, who came back from the dead. It was this whole story arc in the show involving witches and stuff. It was really interesting. So he ends up taking over, only to be dethroned by the Emperor, and that's a whole other thing. So Mandalore kind of goes into chaos. Well, Star Wars Rebels, which is another animated series, and the reason I'm bringing this up is according to Disney, the shows are considered canon now in the Star Wars franchise. So, in the Star Wars Rebels, they do an arc where Mandalore has kind of started to stabilize, and it's some of them are secretly working for the Empire, but they're not really supposed to, and stuff like that. It was really interesting. It was a really interesting plot that they had. There's 2 arcs. I can't remember which seasons they are, but I know there's one in the final season, but because one of the characters is a Mandalorian. So anyway, this show takes place in between 6 and 7, The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. It takes place in between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, and the showrunner is none other than Jon Favreau. Who is Jon Favreau? He is a director, a producer, and actor. He, of course, directed Iron Man, which launched the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He also directed Iron Man 2. He directed the Christmas film Elf, which stars Will Ferrell, and he has roles in these. And of course, to Marvel fans like me, he's known as Happy Hogan, who was Tony Stark's basically assistant and chauffeur, and then he kind of becomes a mentor to Peter Parker, played by Tom Holland, in Spider-Man Far From Home. So he has been kind of given the keys to the kingdom at Lucasfilms to produce The Mandalorian for Disney Plus. Now, I am always hesitant when I hear about TV show spin-offs because a lot of them can have like really, really good kickoffs, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Agent Carter, but then fall apart after the first season in Agent Carter's case, or at the beginning of the third season, like in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s case. But I have watched the first 5 episodes. Disney is really smart, so people don't just get the free trial, binge The Mandalorian, and then cancel. They're actually releasing The Mandalorian weekly. And I'm up to, at this point, at the filming of this video, I'm up to episode 5, which as of right now is the next one in the series. So one of the things I like about the show is a friend of mine named Neon Taster on Twitter. He's a Twitch streamer. He made the note that The Mandalorian is treating Star Wars as a setting. So instead of trying to make it a genre, make Star Wars a genre, which is what comic book films do, right? So the DCU creates this universe, but they treat it as a genre, and the really good ones like Shazam and Wonder Woman, and even Aquaman to some extent, they treat the DCEU as its setting. But then you have the really bad ones like Batman vs Superman and Suicide Squad. It treats it as they're the next stage in the genre, and this is also true of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well. Kind of the Thor: Dark World treated the Marvel Universe as a genre and not a setting. So it kind of fell apart. And also, besides the Thor: Dark World, is just a bad movie. But anyway, neither here nor there. So the Mandalorian uses Star Wars as its setting. It takes mainly place in the Outer Rim, so you know you're not going to encounter any familiar characters. But it does take place on some familiar settings, like episode 5 takes place on Tatooine. But since it's in between 6 and 7, Luke's not there anymore. Obi-Wan Kenobi's not there anymore. And I would just like to say Pedro Pascal playing Mando, as the character is known, is brilliant in this role. He can show emotion even though he is constantly wearing a helmet. He does it with body language, the way he turns his head. It is incredibly impressive, and I want to just give a huge shout out to him. And also, which I'll talk more about this later, I love Baby Yoda. I'm a sucker for that. I think it's fantastic. It's a good aspect of the show. Anyway, Disney Plus, The Mandalorian. One of the things I like about it is Jon Favreau is kind of treating it like as a Western. So a lot of the episodes pay homage to Western films. So episode 4, don't worry, there's no spoilers here. I'm not going to give anything about the show away. But in episode 4, they introduce this character named Cara Dune, and and then she works with Mando to kind of help this village that's in trouble. And it was very reminiscent of the Magnificent Seven, the Seven Samurai, Hell Rider kind of vibe to the show. Now, episode 4 is the weakest, but I think it's because it paid too much homage to the film it was kind of based on. Does that make sense? There were too many tropes from that show. Now, I really believe, and I'm saying this very sincerely, that The Mandalorian can save Star Wars. It will never go back to kind of the heights that it had before. Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy have made sure that it won't. But I do think The Mandalorian can kind of restore the fandom at least a little bit. So what do I mean by that? Now, prior to the sequel trilogy, there was always kind of this tension between the people who love the prequels and the people who don't. And I love the prequels. I don't think they're as good as the original trilogy, but I think that they have a place in the Star Wars universe. And same with this Clone Wars TV show, not the Clone Wars movie. But what I mean by that is the animated Clone Wars movie. But I mean the TV show. I think it has a place there. Not sure it should be canon, but it should have a place there. But there was this competition between what I call the prequel haters and the true fans. So, and again, as you can say, I'm just being playful. But it was more like we were having paintball fights. Serious drama, some insults thrown, but it was all in good fun. You came out a little bruised and your shirt was stained with paint, but you always kind of laughed at the end of it. You always kind of just went, wasn't that fun? And that was how it was. However, The Force Awakens, directed by J.J. Abrams, and The Last Jedi, directed poorly by Ruin Johnson, didn't do this. This actually split the fandom to where it's become toxic on both sides. And I know toxic has kind of been thrown around because Ruin Johnson has so many supporters in the mainstream kind of nerd community, not that real people, but just the ones that are considered mainstream. So like comic book resources, IGN, The Nerdist, they're all happy to kiss his butt. And so they accuse people who don't like the films of being sexist, of being bigoted. They're the toxic ones. And what I'm saying is no, I like Daisy Ridley as an actress. I think she's fine as Rey. She's a victim of bad writing. Same with Kylo Ren, played by Adam Driver. Victim of bad writing. Now, Laura Dern, who plays General Holdo in The Last Jedi, she deserves every point of criticism. Bad actress, bad character, bad writing, bad performance. Yeah. Anyway, so it kind of created this really sharp divide in the franchise where we're no longer just shooting each other with paintballs. We're actually engaged in fisticuffs. I think that really hurt the franchise and it really drove a wedge. And I'm really sad about this because J.J. Abrams, he's a really hit and miss director, but he planted too many mystery boxes in The Force Awakens. And then Ruin Johnson, he's Kathleen Kennedy's whipping boy, so he just decides I don't have to answer these questions, and so he kills characters off. He changes their personalities with no explanation. By the way, he ruined one of the greatest science fiction characters of all time just because Kathleen Kennedy wanted to do something new. And yes, I do blame Kathleen Kennedy mainly when she took over Lucasfilms instead of doing what the fans she said she and Ruin Johnson wanted to subvert expectations. We don't want our expectations subverted. We want our expectations met because then it's just let down. And this is affecting the Rise of Skywalker. I don't know why they brought back J.J. Abrams to direct this. They must have just needed someone. Maybe no one wanted to touch it. But I'm feeling, and we got this from Star Trek to Star Trek 2, he's not going to answer any of the questions that he raised in The Force Awakens. You can actually see this in how the box office expectations are for The Rise of Skywalker. It's not good. Now, I'm still going to go see it. I'm going to go watch it. But I have very low expectations. Now, The Rise of Skywalker comes out this month. So, what are we going to do? I honestly feel like after The Rise of Skywalker ends, The Mandalorian is going to continue. And I think it's going to be the beacon of hope. Sorry to sound dramatic. I really think it is what's going to pull fans back into the franchise. Because there are people who argue and debate things. Like there were some people who didn't like Cara Dune. I know that I'm a politically conservative person, I make that no secret. I work for the frickin' Daily Wire, obviously. So I'm conservative, but fans on the right didn't like Episode 4 because they thought Cara Dune was some sort of SJW woke character. I totally disagree with that. They made her a rebel shock trooper who was militarily trained, and I thought that was appropriate. I mean, it's fiction. It's science fiction. It's a fantasy. Of course it's going to have characters who are like that. And then it takes place in a village. One of the villager women, she turns out to be a crack shot with a blaster. So what? I know a lot of women who are crack shots with guns. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Um, but they were trying to say that it had some sort of SJW messaging. I think that that's overstating it. Obviously, it had a little bit of that hippie girl power stuff that gets old really fast, but it wasn't. It wasn't SJW politically correct mash. It was still a good episode. Still the weakest of the series, but I still thought it was good. I just wanted to make a side note on that. Getting back to the topic at hand, I think once Kathleen Kennedy's contract is out, which it's supposed to be out in 2020, I think Disney is going to let her go. They should put Jon Favreau in the chair. They should make him the head of Lucasfilms. Now, this might be this might be a little premature because we're only 5 episodes in, but so far they have all been extraordinarily good. Even the, like I said, the weakest link in the show right now, it's still good. Chapter 4, it's still enjoyable. In a TV show, you're going to have hit and miss. Doesn't matter how great the show is. There's going to be that 1 or 2 episodes, especially considering how long it runs, that just isn't going to please everyone. That's the way it is. That's just the way it is. So, you didn't know I could sing, did you? But I really feel like this could help Star Wars. It could help heal the fandom. It could help make it good again. I honestly think that Star Wars has just been under so much scrutiny, from me included. And that's not a criticism. The fandom menace existed for a reason. And we have reason to be worried about the Rise of Skywalker because J.J. Abrams, he was talking to Vanity Fair, I think, and he was saying, oh, I think that what Rian Johnson did was good, and I'm going to do some stuff, and it's going to make some people mad. Why would you want to make people mad? You rely on the fans to get you money. You destroyed Solo, for crying out loud. That was the first film of Star Wars money that actually lost money. It should have made money. Solo should have been a good film, but no, it's not going to. It's not going to happen. J.J. Abrams, Kathleen Kennedy, Ruin Johnson need to wake up. They destroyed the movie franchise. So let's put Jon Favreau in the chair. Let's let him do it. He's a good writer. He's a good director. Or Patty Jenkins. There's talk that they may try to tap Patty Jenkins if they can pinch her away from DC, Warner Brothers. Maybe they can, seeing how long it took them to do Wonder Woman 1984. Whatever the case may be, the best thing going forward right now is they just need to let this trilogy happen, and then whoever is after Kathleen Kennedy should just pretend like that The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker didn't happen, and they just need to do another trilogy, and they just need to pretend like it didn't happen. That's the only way forward going now. The Force Awakens was decent. It was fixable until The Last Jedi. And see, no one believed me. I was saying, because everyone thinks Looper is such this good movie. Looper is a terrible movie. It's got outlandish and ridiculous plot holes. Rian Johnson is not a good director. He is just not. He's a hack. Rian Johnson is like Zack Snyder and Darren Aronofsky. They just do. They're really good at choosing their composers for the film score, and they're really good at visual effects. That's it. They're bad at telling stories. They're bad at casting. And especially Darren Aronofsky, no one would even know his name if he didn't put boobs in his movies. Like that's just how it is. Black Swan, Mother, no one would have cared about those movies, but because he put naked ladies in it, people pretend like his stuff matters. Zack Snyder, oh, it's so visually stunning. People said the same thing about Avatar, and I hate to break it to everyone. Transformers which came out the year before Avatar, had way better special effects than James Cameron's Avatar. And I will die on that molehill. So, what does Star Wars need to do? Well, first of all, they need to get better directors, people who aren't hit and miss, or at least are more hit than miss. Because there were rumors that they wanted Spielberg to direct one of the films. That would have been good. Gareth Edwards, who directed the only successful, like truly successful film. Now I know they went through post and they did some reshoots. So what? Every movie goes through that to some extent. Still, why not him? Why not give him a shot? Someone who's actually done it. How about Christopher Nolan? He successfully revived the public interest in my favorite character, Batman. Why not let him do a Star Wars movie? What's he going to say? No? Our only hope right now is that Jon Favreau continues to do a good job with The Mandalorian. And maybe we'll get some good stuff coming out of Star Wars. It can go forward. Hopefully they'll send Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams packing. I don't know if they will. Her contract was extended through 2020, but I think it was just so, honestly think, they couldn't fire her in the middle of the Rise of Skywalker's production because that would have looked really bad. So they were like, okay, we're just going to extend her contract through the fallout of the Rise of Skywalker, then we'll just let her go. I really feel like that is what's happening because she has completely mismanaged this franchise with her whole team. They have completely let the fans down. And there's always these guys on Twitter who say she was handpicked by George Lucas. First of all, I have not been able to confirm that. No one has been able to confirm that. I found like one article from CBR that kind of hinted that maybe there was a possibility she was his pick. But outside of that, nothing. And even if that rumor is true, it does not matter because she still did a bad job. And who knows, maybe this is the secret genius to George Lucas. Maybe he knew she'd do a crappy job. And so he told Disney, hey, now that you bought me out, put her in charge. It wouldn't surprise me because he has successfully created a demand for him to return. So we're just going to have to wait and see how all this works out. But I believe The Mandalorian, it will be the focus point because I've seen, now there are some debates about Baby Yoda, which I'm going to talk about now. Baby Yoda is genius because one thing that people don't, that all these prequel haters forget is that, the whole thing with Jar Jar Binks. Jar Jar Binks was a bad character, fine, whatever. But Star Wars was meant to bring in kids, and I think that's something George Lucas realized, especially after The Empire Strikes Back. We've got to have a little bit of cuteness in it to bring in younger audiences, and that's what Episode 1 did. It brought in a whole generation of new fans. And so Baby Yoda is that. Now, it seems to me Disney kind of underestimated how big of a blow up, because we've seen Baby Yoda has become this great meme phenomenon on the internet, where he's basically replaced Kermit as as a meme, and I really think Disney underestimated that. But it's forced Star Wars back into the forefront, and I think that that's fantastic. I think that we were going to see Disney want to do a good job now. I hate to say this, but because Disney handles the MCU really well, even the bad films, they at least handle them and market them well. But Warner Brothers with the DCEU, they have this tendency to double down. So like people say, hey, we don't really like things to Superman and the Man of Steel. We don't like the fact that he murdered Zod. We really don't like that. And so they said, hold my beer. And then the best thing about Batman vs Superman is Wonder Woman. Her name's not even in the title, but it's the best thing about the movie. Keep that in mind. And so then they misread that message, right? And so with Suicide Squad, they re-edit it and make it like this fun kind of Fast and Furious movie, which I actually like Suicide Squad, but as kind of like a toy commercial. It's like one long toy commercial, but I have fun with it. Disney is doing this with Star Wars. Every time a fan says, hey, I don't like the fact that Rey is kind of a Mary Sue in The Force Awakens. I mean, she just magically gets these abilities. And then so Kathleen Kennedy goes, shut up, you man. And then they do The Last Jedi, where she's even more of a Mary Sue, where after only 2 lessons, even though they said 3 in the movie, after only 2 lessons, she can magically wield a lightsaber with this level of mastery that only Master Yoda had. I keep saying mastery. In Episode 2. It's like, oh my gosh. And so now it looks like they didn't hear us, and so they're going to do this again for the Rise of Skywalker. We'll just have to wait and see. and put our hopes and dreams right now in The Mandalorian for fellow Star Wars fans. But anyway, love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, @RealJacobAiry. My Instagram is also @RealJacobAiry. My Facebook page is Author Jacob Airy. And of course, you can find my blog, jacobairy.blog. That's JACOBAIREY.blog, where I have even more stuff where I talk about this. I also talk about television. I talk about films. I talk about anime. I talk about comic books, all kinds of pop culture stuff. So definitely head over there, subscribe. You can subscribe through WordPress or through email. So definitely head over there. Don't forget to, for a Christmas present for that loved one in your life, get my novel. Sorry about the awkward jump cut. Get my novel, The Seven Royals, All Good Things in the Land of Craze. 7 young royals, Jasher, Philip, Talia, Connor, Rapunzel, James, and Belle, were living peaceful lives until Emperor Midas and the evil Grand Mage Fabius Thorn attacked their lands with their dark army. The Dragon Prince Jasher is put into a frozen sleep while the others are scattered for their protection. 10 years later, Jasher awakens with a mystical blue sword and unites the other 6. Along the way, the royals encounter friends, foes, and unexpected allies as they journey back to retake their homeland. Who wouldn't want to read this? Definitely get it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Apple Books, and on Kobo. That's all the time I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Next week, I'll be talking about Doomsday Clock as that series finally comes to a close. I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.